Under the bright afternoon sun, the charity gala went utterly still. One of the world's most powerful female billionaires stopped breathing for a single unforgettable moment, and the air seemed to hold its breath along with her. Crystal glasses hung frozen in midair, cameras swiveled instinctively toward the center of the garden, and dozens of guests stood gaping in disbelief. Her 9-year-old daughter, who relied on a wheelchair and had spent months in determined rehabilitation after a devastating spinal injury, had just taken several unsteady but resolute steps away from her therapist. Instead of reaching for her mother, she stretched her trembling arms toward an ordinary-looking single father who stood quietly near the back of the crowd. Tears streamed down the little girl's face as she smiled and crossed the final distance to embrace him. Nobody present could understand why she trusted this stranger so completely. Even fewer realized that the quiet father she ran toward had once been a highly decorated Navy SEAL, a past he had hidden for years while raising his son alone. That extraordinary afternoon marked the beginning of a story that proved courage is not measured by medals, wealth, or power, but by the quiet determination to help someone believe in themselves once more. Before we go any further, if you believe kindness, second chances, and unconditional love still exist, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Dad and Destiny Stories. Your support helps these inspiring stories reach the people who need hope the most. At 38 years old, Gideon Vale lived a life so unremarkable that most of his neighbors barely noticed him. Every morning began with warm sunshine as he packed lunches, walked his 10-year-old son Micah to school, and repaired boats at the small marina where he worked. Few people knew that years earlier, Gideon had completed dangerous missions around the world as a Navy SEAL. He never spoke about his medals or his heroics because those memories carried too much painful loss. After losing his wife to illness, he quietly walked away from military life, deciding that his greatest mission from then on would be to become the father his son truly deserved. Across the city, 42-year-old Aurora Sterling seemed to have everything that success could buy. She led a global technology company, graced magazine covers, and influenced industries across continents. Yet every achievement felt hollow compared to the hospital rooms where her daughter Nessa spent countless hours rebuilding her strength after a severe spinal injury from a traffic accident. Doctors never promised she would walk again. Instead, they celebrated every tiny improvement, a stronger grip, better balance, one more determined step during therapy. Aurora attended every single appointment, but guilt gnawed at her because she had been behind the wheel on the day the accident changed their lives forever. Months earlier, Gideon had first met Nessa at a public rehabilitation center, while Micah volunteered after school by reading adventure books to the recovering children. Gideon never offered medical advice or dramatic speeches. Instead, he shared stories about perseverance, teamwork, and courage. He showed the children how even the strongest people sometimes needed help standing back up. Nessa listened closely. She admired the quiet confidence that never asked for applause. Every therapy session became a little brighter whenever Gideon and Micah visited. They turned difficult exercises into games, celebrated tiny milestones, and reminded every child that progress came from determination rather than speed. Gradually, Nessa stopped fearing failure. Instead of dwelling on what she couldn't do, she began to celebrate every small victory she achieved. Aurora noticed the remarkable change in her daughter's spirit. For the first time since the accident, Nessa smiled before therapy instead of dreading it. She laughed more often, believed more deeply, and worked harder than ever. Curious, Aurora introduced herself to Gideon. She expected to meet someone who was seeking recognition or financial reward. Instead, she found a humble father who simply believed that every child deserved encouragement. As the weeks passed, Aurora began volunteering anonymously at the rehabilitation center alongside Gideon and Micah. Away from boardrooms and cameras, she discovered a completely different definition of success. She watched Gideon patiently comfort frightened children, repair broken toys during lunch breaks, and quietly encourage exhausted parents. His strength came not from his past, but from his compassion for others. One sunny afternoon, the rehabilitation center organized a charity celebration in the botanical gardens to honor the progress the children had made. Families gathered beneath blue skies as therapists demonstrated how persistence and community support could transform lives. Nessa had spent months preparing for one important goal, taking several independent steps during the ceremony. When her therapist gently released her supportive harness, every heartbeat seemed to pause. Slowly, carefully, she placed one foot forward, then another. The distance was only a few meters, yet it represented months of determination, pain, tears, and hope. She glanced toward her mother with gratitude, but then unexpectedly turned toward Gideon. He had never promised her miracles. He had simply convinced her to never stop believing that her effort mattered. With careful determination, Nessa crossed the remaining distance and wrapped her arms around him. Aurora stood frozen, overcome not because a miracle had occurred, but because she finally understood that healing is rarely accomplished by medicine alone. It also grows through encouragement, patience, friendship, and unwavering belief in someone's potential. Later that afternoon, Aurora learned the truth about Gideon's military past when another parent at the rehabilitation center recognized his service. She discovered that the quiet Marine mechanic had once risked his life countless times before choosing a simpler mission, raising his son with kindness and helping others rebuild their hope. Gideon gently dismissed every compliment that came his way. He insisted that his proudest achievement was watching Micah become such a compassionate young man. Inspired by everything she had witnessed, Aurora established a nationwide foundation to support rehabilitation programs for injured children, regardless of their financial background. She asked Gideon to help lead its community outreach because she believed that courage inspired people far more effectively than wealth ever could. Though reluctant at first, Gideon accepted, not for recognition, but because it meant more children would receive the encouragement they deserved. Years later, thousands of families have benefited from those very programs. Children regained their confidence, parents found much-needed support, and communities discovered that healing is strongest when people stand together. Nessa continued improving through dedicated therapy until she could walk independently for longer and longer distances. Every step remained a victory earned through perseverance rather than any kind of magic. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Dad and Destiny Stories so more families can discover stories of hope, resilience, and kindness. And before you go, we have a special request. Please comment "Hope gives us strength" if you believe that compassion and perseverance can truly change lives. As the warm afternoon sunlight settled over the botanical gardens once again, Aurora watched her daughter laughing beside Gideon and Micah. She realized that the richest person in the garden had never been the billionaire. It had been the quiet father who expected nothing in return for his kindness. Wealth had built hospitals, but compassion had helped a frightened little girl believe she could keep taking the next step. Sometimes the greatest heroes are not the ones the world applauds. They are the ones who quietly remind others that hope is always worth holding on to.